Welcome to our presentation for the HealthHack 2020 project, the abstract. So my name's Lachlan Christie. I'm here with the problem owner and fellow hacker. It's Mike Imelfort. We join the organisers in our acknowledgement of country and paying our respects. So our team has dedicated their time on this project over the past 2 weekends. We're made up of all the awesome people you can see in the picture, and someone who's not pictured there is Hao.
Yeah, thanks, Lachlan. So, look, I'm just going to talk about the problem that we're trying to look at here. So researchers, they do a lot of hard work, they do a lot of research, and they create very useful knowledge. But when they communicate that knowledge, they often use very technical talk or very specific words and language. And that language isn't always accessible to people in the broader community or even scientists in different fields. Now, people in the community, when they're hearing that talk, what they might do is misinterpret what the scientist has been saying. And whether or not they know they've misinterpreted or not, they're very likely to keep going and talking about this elsewhere. And when other people hear their interpretations, then what happens is we end up with these weird things with bad information and bad decisions. I've got here, eating bananas cures cancer. That's an actual thing you can look up because of misinterpretation of some scientific research. And so the thing that we're trying to do as part of this hackathon is to create this feedback loop, to create a way that researchers can understand how their research might be interpreted or misinterpreted before it takes off and gets this way of doing it. The solution that we kind of came up with in terms of a conceptual basis was that the researchers could attach a quiz to their draft media release that would ask questions that would elucidate understanding. And then by getting the results of that quiz back, they could understand then how it's being done. Now, we set ourselves a bit of a challenge, and there's a few reasons why we did this, but we decided to see if we could do this using I don't want to use the word serverless architecture, but something kind of like serverless architecture, just using Google Apps scripts. So basically, the whole thing's based around Google Forms, which populate Google Sheets, which trigger Google scripts, which send emails. The scripts also produce new forms. The forms get sent out, and it just keeps cascading like this until it gets to the end and the researcher gets their report. This caused us a couple of problems, which I can definitely talk about over a beer at some stage, but I won't bore you with now. And we also got a bunch of learning. And importantly, using this kind of workflow suited the coding skills of the people that were in our group. So that was really nice.
So we're going to look at one of the forms produced as part of the project. And essentially, after filling out this form, other forms will be programmatically generated. They're going to move the data through our process, and it's going to culminate in a report for the researcher. That low-tech approach has allowed us to nail down the process flows and iterate upon them in an agile way. So as we look to the future of the product, we have ideas such as expanding our users' incentives. This includes creating a one-stop shop for journalists to find research content. Some of our other ideas would include reporting that we believe might be able to be used in a future project to create an AI that will support the researchers to create multiple media releases. And altogether, this builds towards a self-sustained product for the research community.
That's excellent. And look, we're going to keep this one short and sweet. I'm sure everyone will be pleased about that as well. So the only thing left to do now is to say the thank yous. So first and foremost, thank you to the organisers who work hard to get this happening. For anyone that knows me, you know that I know how much work that takes. I'd like to thank all the sponsors who give us money, give the hackathon money to be able to make this happen year after year after year. I want to thank the people who signed up to help us with surveys and to test our application and so on and so forth. That was really good. Hey, sorry about that. I've got people right outside my window. And I would like to thank the sponsors. I'd like to thank my team. Got distracted. Thank you to my team. You're all very wonderful. I love you all. We all had different skills. We all had different professional backgrounds, and we were able to come together. And I really, really enjoyed playing this role within HealthHack this year. It's been really, really fun. So with that said, I think we'll answer some questions.
Okay, will the judges please come up?
And before we start talking to the judges, I just wanted to let you know, because Mike is an organizer, he has withdrawn himself from the prizes, winning prizes. So we thank his team for being so understanding about that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing to add as well. Yeah, the team signed up to my problem, knowing that there was less glory, and that's something too, right? That's pretty cool.
Mate, they're working with you.
Yeah. Oh, and they had to listen to me for 4 days. Can you believe?
Cool. I'll kick this off. This whole translational research is actually very important, such that we know the importance of what the research is and what it's accomplished, but how do you communicate that through? So I'm all for that. Question in terms of how do we know the feedback loop? How do we know what that really means in terms of what the people out there really understand, right? Are we getting the view from the journalists, or are we really getting the view from the people that they're communicating from? What's that look like?
So one of the things that we did when we were walking through this, I might even have a slide here that can go through here. Just this topic here is probably a bit small. We spent a lot of time trying to understand how information flows and how people find out about science, how people know about scientific knowledge. And what we kind of did is we worked out, we call that team the smart aunties. And this comes down to this idea that you've got journalists, like people who are bloggers and so on and so forth, or actual proper, card-carrying journalists. But then you also have someone who's like at the barbecue, who just knows about stuff. And you might go and ask them, I heard about this thing the other day, what do you think? And they're like the smart aunties, the people that are in the know and do it. But even they can make mistakes as well. And so what we're trying to do is, on one hand, we have the researchers who are creating a media release or creating their research. And on the other hand, we wanted to grab a group, primarily, I guess, of these smart aunties, but of the general public. If we were to grab just researchers to give feedback to researchers, then they would be likely to understand the language or to know the caveats. For example, with ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, and what the word spectrum means to those researchers, as the word spectrum means to, a lot of other people in the general community. So by the idea is to draw a very wide audience of people from the general public, educated people from the general public, and have them answer questions that show their understanding of the research, so that the researcher might pick up on, oh, well, that word means something completely different outside of my small circle of co-workers. And hopefully then there isn't this kind of snafu where, the word catches on, it has the wrong meaning, or something like that, and you can't really stop that train once it's started, or at least it's very difficult.
Mike and team and Lachlan, thank you very much. The translation of research into everyday, absorbable, understandable communication is imperative. And I'm wondering what percentage of publications already come with a media release kind of request? And secondly, what or where do the media releases then go to, or who do they go to once your program has created them? So
there's a few different avenues that media releases kind of travel down. So for example, some institutions or some journals will really want a media release to be written. Generally, so that's when something is either kind of, I don't want to use it controversial, but when something is in the news or is of interest to the news, or if it's just something that would blow your mind, some mind-bending research that's really great. But for example, if you look like Oxford University Press, their policy for media releases is that they're just using it as a way to kind of do promotions. And so they choose who gets to get the media release, and they choose that kind of stuff that goes out. And then they'll submit their media releases into a service like something like Eureka Alert. And Eureka Alert is a service that journalists can subscribe to, and then they get alerts that come through. But Eureka Alert will only accept media releases from a PIO, like a journal or something like that. And so there's a whole bunch of people who are kind of on the outside who may want to release some kind of a media release or want to release some useful text, but don't have the PR department at the university or the journal or something to help them, and they don't have the reach to get out. So one of the reasons why I originally thought we could build this with the Google Apps scripts was that it'd be easy to pick this thing up and just drop it in different places, even if it's not totally polished, because like a student group or something at a university or a bunch of postdocs could go and build this out and then just kind of get their feedback and then use this not only to just hone that one media release as a product to go to the world, but also for them to learn how the public understands their language, so that they know when they're talking to the public, we don't use this word, we use this word, but when I'm talking to researchers, we use a different word again. I don't know if I answered your question. I have a habit of doing that, so please ask me to clarify if I haven't.
Hey, Mike. So as a researcher myself, I certainly understand your comment about researchers not even understanding other researchers in terms of sometimes their science. So I think this is a really creative tool. I wanted to ask you, intended target. Like, I can see obviously there's benefits to, like you just said, for the scientists to learn about communication. There's also benefits for the journalists. But in building this app, what's your intended sort of strategy? Like, is this really to help media people? Is it like what's your kind of implementation plan?
Good question. So I guess like it's probably the people in the hack already know. I've been an organizer at HealthHack for many years, and I've seen a lot of problems come and go. During this coronavirus and this thing that's been happening, the misinformation is just murdering my mind, right? Which is what my motivation was for trying to get this project going. And I guess the way that I would describe this is that it's kind of like a proof of concept of a proof of concept. So I couldn't find anything that kind of existed like this. And I, being involved with HealthHack, I saw a good opportunity to kind of build something out. And so what I would like to do is I would like to take this now and within even my own personal networks or networks I've made here at HealthHack and so on and so forth, start trying to get some people to use this tool and then to use this really basic kind of, I don't want to say service architecture, this very basic bare bones model of what we have to understand what an actual proof of concept would look like, what people will get out of it, how they will use it, and to use this as a way to learn lessons about how to make this better. Because there's a lot of, I think there's just a lot of advantages if we can work out, how to make language mesh across wider audiences. So really, it's a bit of an adventure, and hopefully, thanks to the really excellent work that my team has put in the last couple of days, I have something now where I can start a conversation. I can say, well, give this a go. And let's see, and it'll likely have some issues, and we can just keep fixing it up and learn from it. Maybe it might come back as another problem when we know more about it. But at least we have something now that we have a nail to start catching stuff on and learning about what's happening going forward.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good luck. That sounds great.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you to all the judges.